I do want to make one quick announcement for those of you who enjoy morning coffee. There is in the outside foyer, just to your right, some biomass collected perhaps from the high mountains of Peru, perhaps roasted indoors, but nevertheless it tastes wonderful. So if any of you that would like that, just slip quietly out and get yourself a cup, and we will continue with our program. We're still on the dark side of the program. We're talking about horrible problems and extreme consequences. Dr. Muir, I'm going to ask you to make some summary comments from a overall perspective, but while we're talking about toxicity, do you want to make any specific comments about the toxicity side of things at this particular moment? We may have some lighter, positive messages if I allow them.
I think I'd like to wait.
Okay, okay, very good. Well, the message really is, Louisville, you have a problem. And if you remember where that came from, Houston, we have a problem. Well, Apollo 13 did ultimately make it back, and Lovell and Schweikert, who gave us those great phrases, became famous and models for great movies and things. So there was hope for Apollo 13, and I hope that there is hope for us. And I would now like to have a couple of hopeful message. I'd like to start with my colleague, Dr. Michael Busamra, we just saw that slide of the smoking incidents going up among young people. I've seen a lot of this stuff before. That was horrible. Very, very depressing. Maybe you and Mr. Green have some positive things to say about that. I hope so.
Thank you, Gordon. Well, I'm Michael Busamra, and I'm a thoracic surgeon, and I work at the university and at Jewish Hospital. And how many here have a religious vocation? This is the Festival of Faiths, and are there any, priests, sisters, anything like that out? Ministers? Well, anyway, this is too much to pass by, because as a thoracic surgeon, I think when I was growing up, if I could be a married Jesuit priest who was a physician and scientist, that's what I would have wanted to be. But to do that now, I'd have to become an Episcopal priest and then get back into the Catholic Church, and it'd take a long time. But anyway, I just want to get, with everybody's permission, a little bit religious here, because sacred air for us is really sacred breath, right? We breathe the air, and Jesus breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit, whose sins you forgive, they are forgiven them," etc., etc. And St. Paul said that the body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. That is, we all, you can think of we are all somewhat godlike, and we should take care of ourselves because of that God-likeness. And part of my passion about being a thoracic surgeon is there's nothing worse than taking organic compounds like tobacco, combusting them, combining them with oxygen, producing thousands of cancer-causing compounds, and inhaling them right into your lungs and then putting them back out. About the only thing worse is to have somebody else breathe the smoke that you produce. So at the beginning of the program, I passed out the Surgeon General's warnings on secondhand smoke and the take-home points. So what I'd like to do is just briefly, in just a few minutes, talk about the hard-nosed points about smoking, and then talk about some of the things that I and Andre Green have been doing about it in our community. First of all, the cancer epidemic of the 20th century is really just about smoking. If you look at the rise in incidence of cancer over the past 100 years, it follows in lockstep the overall tobacco consumption of the United States, with about a 15 to 20-year lag, because it takes that long to develop cancer once you start smoking. The other thing is that the fall of cancer development over the past 10 to 15 years correlates almost solely with the decline in smoking in the United States. Our chemotherapies, our medical therapies aren't getting any better at curing cancer. We may live longer, but ultimately we're dying of cancer-related diseases that are all related to smoking. Matt's slide that you showed about the chief causes of death in Louisville, coronary artery disease, lung cancer, COPD, stroke, all have as a principal etiology, the dominant etiology is smoking for every one of those top four. So we really can't get around it. 90% of people who develop lung cancer, their cause is smoking. It's more common to have a woman who gets lung cancer because unrelated to smoking, and they may have an increased susceptibility to secondhand smoke. It's rare to see a man who's never smoked and get lung cancer, unlike the couple that was displayed earlier today. But to just spend a little bit more time about secondhand smoke, it is not a benign problem. In the United States, according to the California EPA, secondhand smoke is responsible for about 3,600 deaths from lung cancer. 3,600 deaths from lung cancer a year. 46,000 deaths from coronary artery disease. And probably, worst of all, although the volume isn't that much, there are an estimated 400 sudden infant death syndrome cases a year from smoke. That is, mothers who smoke during pregnancy and families who smoke in the infant year. That is the dominant etiology of sudden infant death syndrome. Amazing that anybody does it with that knowledge. So the other thing is that as a thoracic surgeon, I'm not doing all that much good. If you look at the overall mortality rate from lung cancer in 1970, the 5-year survival rate was 13.8%, and now it's 15.5%. That difference is almost totally explainable by what we call the lead time bias of diagnosing cancer early. We have CAT scans and we have more visits to the doctor, and so that difference in 5-year survival may be only due to a time shift from catching it earlier, but not necessarily curing more patients. So, they do pay me money to operate on the chest and take out cancers, and I sweat and wring my hands trying to get everybody through the operation, because my first responsibility is to not kill the patient with an operation that may or may not help them. So about 5 years ago, I got the idea to do something about smoking, and particularly smoking among youth. We all know that Kentuckians smoke more than anybody else, and our youth smoke more than anyone else. I love cars, and so I got this idea that we would get a super fancy Ford GT, and I would make it into an emblem of an anti-smoking emblem. And I started a charity called Drive Cancer Out, and believe it or not, I got a Ford dealership to sell our charity a Ford GT at a ridiculously low price, and I got Republic Bank to give us a low-interest loan, and with some generous support from Jewish Hospital and neighbors. We ran a program for 3 or 4 years in schools, combined with medical students, teaching kids about the harmful effects of smoking, and their reward was they got to sit in the car, take their picture with the car. We went to the state fairgrounds, we went to ball games, we went to car races, and all told, we had about 10,000 kids sit in this Ford GT and get their picture taken and promise not to smoke. They get their picture if they promise not to smoke. And, we didn't have enough money to have metrics about it, but we were gratified that in the short time that we ran our run and made a TV commercial and all that sort of thing, the incidence of smoking among youth in Kentucky went down, and the incidence of smoking in Kentucky for adults went down. Of course, we had a 30-cent tax increase on cigarettes, which was a big help. It's the single most dominant factor that you can have about to improve smoking rates. But anyway, the all good marketing schemes come to an end, and the the car theme sort of ran its course. The medical students had increased classroom responsibilities and were less available. So I found a new partner, and that's Andre Green, sitting in the front row here. Andre, can you come up? So Andre was working in parallel, and he has a program called Help Clear the Air. And we're in the process of handing the Drive Cancer Out baton to Help Clear the Air runner. We're not going to drop the baton like the American 4x100 relay team. We're going to take it all the way to the finish. But Andre's been doing some fantastic work. He's a media specialist, an entertainment specialist, musician, and we're transferring our theme in schools from hauling out organs and surgical instruments and DNA and RNA, which was the theme that I had, you know, the causes of smoking, what it does to a more upbeat approach about smoking and ways to be cool and not smoke. So I'm going to turn it over to Andre to show you a little bit about what we've been doing in school lately.
I'll give those of you who, like me, want to stay on the dark side, not give uplifting messages.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come here. My name is Andre Green. I am with HelpClearTheAir.com. We've been coast to coast and overseas speaking about positive messages, but being right here in Kentucky, of course, smoking hits home. My daughter has asthma. One of my partners right here, Adam Thompson, his son has asthma. And when it hits home like that, then you want to make a difference. Being in Kentucky and knowing all the statistics, it's like we're fighting inside the belly of the beast. You know, I know some of the people whose financial incomes could be affected by our message, and I love them and I love their children, but I understand that the message and the alternative at least needs to be presented in a way where they will receive it. And this generation, they want to see flashy videos and music on the level that the messages that are negative are being presented. You can just show those right there. Those are just some pictures of some people that we were working with. They have a television show that we've touched millions of people accumulatively. You can see the slideshow. There you go. And actually, my wife, Nikki Green, right there, her father passed away from cancer. My grandmother passed away from cancer, so it really hits home. You can go out of that forward. And as you can see on this very first one he's about to pull out, we worked in the areas where we were just talking about. People are greatly affected in the West End. So we gave away these bands in 2005. Band for life, if y'all remember the billboards, the smoking cessation, we gave away 20,000 of these wristbands, and we asked children to make a pledge not to smoke. That's my daughter, Kaylin. She's a senior at Male High School. She has asthma. And she would love to play basketball, but she kind of gets winded a little bit. She's extremely talented. See, she's tired right there, still coming out there and helping. You can go to the next one. I've got videos that you'll see when you go to HelpClearTheAir.com where I do rap music, and of course you guys know that children love rap music. Anybody here a fan of rap music? No, because you haven't heard the right messages with it. It's like positive peer pressure. If I've got 10 kids and 2 of them want to smoke, then the 2 negative kids are going to feel obligated to try to do the right thing somewhat. And we go and give these messages to these children at an age where they're very impressionable. We would love to make it a mentor program where the college kids help the high schoolers help the middle schoolers help the elementary schoolers, so that they become a part of it. And it's a little harder to light up a cigarette in front of your little brother if you just told him about the dangers of it. So it's kind of inclusive, and it's really effective. Those are some of the tools that Dr. Busamra and Drive Cancer Out have been so gracious to help us with. And you can see healthy lungs, and you can see unhealthy lungs, and the kids' faces tell stories. They are, ew, it's gross, and they touch it, and they are really affected, and they remember these things. I've seen children who that's right there. You can pause that for a second right there. That guy right there is a mask. He's one of the characters that we have in a presentation. It's basically a musical, like Glee, like the things that you see on TV. And we have the big tobacco guy and the pack. And their message is they want people to smoke, and they live like the entourage, and they're big ballers off of your stupidity if you want to smoke and contribute to it. So I was told that all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. And another quote that really hit home with me was, "No single snowflake in an avalanche feels responsible." Think about that one. But we are all contributing by doing nothing. So my dad always told me, you can do anything you want, but you can't do everything. So I had to get some help. So I'm asking you to help me clear the air about the uncool parts of smoking. You can go ahead and go to the next one. And let these children know the reality of some of the decisions they're making. Now, there are several decisions that you'll make as a child that will affect you, but not many will be as effective as the decision to smoke or not to smoke, especially here in Kentucky. So we had the children to do pictures. You go through those. As they draw the pictures, as they get the message, we know that they're getting it because after we leave and come back, we find these informational drawings that really touched us. We didn't ask them to do this. They just did these and put them on the wall, and we went over there, and the messages that we gave to them are incorporated into their art. So they're becoming part of the solution. And now we are at the point where instead of just doing it locally, we've been successful since 2005, y'all. I know it's early in the morning. I know some of y'all are yawning, you might want to stretch, but I really want you to understand the seriousness of this message. Since 2005, I've been over here watching children walk off of a cliff into a meat grinder, screaming, "Stop, stop, stop, please, please stop," to the point where I just got to the point where I couldn't even speak. It's painful to even think about. 1,200 people dying every day. 1,200 a day, 400,000 people a year. My grandmother, my father-in-law, my daughter, my friends' sons, people being affected right here all around me. I'm watching the pictures, the faces just disappear off of the picture, and the potential of the future. If something's not done immediately, it's not going to get any better. We just saw the statistics from 2008, and I'm almost afraid to see the ones in 2011. I hope they are increasing, but I know that in 2005, when we gave away 20,000 wristbands, even on the stats I was just looking at, I saw the stuff start to decline, but then they pulled the funding away, and it went right back up to worse than it was before. For change to be effective, it must be consistent. We need to be a part of the educational process in schools nationally, internationally. We need to be a part of the entertainment industry globally. And I have an award-winning team. Steven Spielberg handpicked one of my directors. I have movies, 12 films that we have already got a team of professional Hollywood writers developing. One of them called Smoke and Mirrors. Just in a nutshell, it's some kids that wander into a house. It's basically the Grim Reaper's house. His sickle that he uses to cut down the tobacco leaves it's very relatable. And they go into this Smoke and Mirrors, house of mirrors, and they see themselves aging and making decisions and they have alternate endings in those mirrors. And then they come out running, and then they're confronted, and it goes off saying, "What are you going to do?" And it's a call to action. However, we were blessed enough by Dr. Basamra and Drive Cancer Out to get a sound system, which we utilized to go to the schools. And like a few weeks ago, we were at South Odom, and we were talking to 400 seniors. And I've been to every school in in Louisville twice probably, but I can only be so many places at once. So we're trying to do some movies and get the college kids to help the middle, all the way to elementary, like I spoke of earlier. And in our efforts, we were thwarted somewhat just because of some of the teachers and the things that were involved. They could not handle things on the level that we needed to be done. So now we're trying to do the movies. You guys know that if we put a movie out with a powerful message, people are going to remember this. So when we go to tour, we can go to the convention center, and all of the schools can come, as opposed to me and my wife spinning our wheels in Louisville, going from school to school to school to school to school, making a little bit of difference, and making a difference. It is doing that one at a time, but if we can do it on a bigger scale, it would be really, really nice. So we're trying to get cameras, we're saving up. I know about the homework I've done about the tobacco settlement, about the $149 billion that has been put aside for these exact things, yet we can't access it, they won't give it to us, I don't know. So I said, you know what, that makes me mad. MAD is an acronym for making a difference. If you see, I'm mad, it means I'm making a difference. We'll have buttons and we'll have stickers that you can donate anything you want to towards the cause to try to raise the funds for this movie. If they won't give it to me, I'll raise it and I'll do it myself because I'm not gonna watch my child walk into the meat grinder. So I hope that you would help us to clear the air about all of the issues concerning our children. I could keep going forever. We've got rap videos, I've got cartoons. You can show the little cartoon real quick. In closing, I'll leave with the one that you got minimized down there. And I've had to come out of my pocket to try to get this done with the character I created for the elementary level. It's Croaky the Frog, and no man, you smoke, you croak. That's simple. We got some catchy stuff, y'all. The kids love our stuff. That's Croaky. I wish you could hear the animation that goes along with this. There's volume on there. If you turn it up a little bit, maybe put the speaker to it and start over, they may be able to get the, but you get the gist. You see the pictures. I had to do, I'm talking, we bought computers. All right, start it over. That's enough of it, but you can go to helpcleartheair.com, you'll see it. We've got videos and all kinds of things that we're trying to do. So hopefully you guys will help us to make a difference. Thank you, Dr. Busamra, Draft Cancer Out, for the opportunity.
In spite of my best efforts, we're being drugged into some very positive messages here. And we'll have another one, but I must ask the next two presenters, Dr. Van Sickle, do you think you can persuade Ted Smith and Mayor Fisher to orchestrate your endeavors with some rap music and colorful cartoon characters, or are we going to get another scientific presentation here? Then I'll have the same thing to Dr. Muir to see if he can reach to the National Academy of Sciences and give us a Steven Spielberg orchestrated presentation. Dr. Van Sickle, this is what we're doing, of course, information in, information out. And I think Andre Green has just given us a great example of information out. But to keep that information accurate, we need to have information in to the scientists that you had earlier on the panel. So these things go together. And the Mayor's Office of Innovation, headed by Dr. Ted Smith, is going to bring, I think, some of the most exciting technology things to Louisville and to help of those of us on the medical side. This is the #1 rollout, and I think you'll all find this absolutely fascinating use of technology. Dr. David Van Sickle.
Thank you, Dr. Coven. I learned from Dr. Powell's presentation that my state's somewhat responsible for your air pollution, so I'm sorry. I'm gonna go home, ask him to cut it out, and in the meantime, hope that at least what we're sending your way smells like bratwurst. I don't know. It's about all I can do. All right, I'm gonna start today with a story from Barcelona, Spain, where in 1981, physicians at 4 large urban hospitals began to report fairly extraordinary outbreaks of asthma. On these days, people were suffering from unusually severe disease, often resulting in hospitalization and at an increased rate of fatality, and they really overwhelmed emergency rooms. So the city assembled this crack team of scientists and physicians to investigate the cause of these outbreaks. But it took them a long time. Over the next 7 years, the physicians in Barcelona reported a total of 26 asthma outbreak days. The breakthrough finally occurred when physicians pulled in all the patients who'd been to the hospital and asked them to recall where they were when their attack began. The majority reported that they'd been affected in the center of the city, near the waterfront. So the team was finally able to narrow a decade-long search to the harbor and a neighboring industrial area there. The group looked at the records of cargoes unloaded from ships and barges in the harbor, and then examined those records side by side with the occurrence of asthma outbreaks. It turned out that asthma outbreaks occurred only on days that ships had unloaded soybeans, releasing large amounts of soybean dust into the air. Maybe that's what I should be looking for in Wisconsin. The installation of appropriate filters on the harbor silos brought the 8-year-long series of asthma days to an end, and for the first time, it identified soybean dust as a potent asthma, new etiologic agent in asthma outbreaks. 20 years later, asthma remains this huge problem. We've got better treatments, we've improved our understanding of the disease, but our approach to surveillance really hasn't changed. We're still limited to looking back years after the fact at only a tiny fraction of the events that happen, namely, like you saw earlier, fatalities and hospitalizations. And a handful of states have robust emergency room visit surveillance. It's basically like trying to cross the street with a picture of what traffic looked like 5 minutes ago. Or if you asked your credit card company to try to tackle credit card fraud by pulling the cash register receipts from one business in your city from 3 years ago. It's not effective. Moreover, the events that we monitor only teach us about where the person lived, not where their attack began. You saw maps earlier of Louisville, and all those events, hospitalizations, fatalities, you get the location where the person lives. In addition, there's this incredible amount of asthma in daily life that's all but invisible to the public health system, like the more than 10 million visits to physicians' offices, 25 million missed days of school and work, let alone 50 million inhalations each week in the United States, use of the rescue medication, which over a year results in a circle about the size of the space shuttle. Despite what Steve Jobs has done with my machine, this thing can't even draw a circle that big. So in 2006, I left my job at the CDC, determined to try a new approach, and I started building Asthmapolis.
Millions of Americans carry and use inhalers to relieve asthma symptoms. How often a person uses their inhaler indicates how well their disease is managed. The Spiroscout is a small device that attaches easily to most inhalers. It uses GPS to automatically determine the exact time and location when the inhaler is used, because revealing where people use their inhalers provides valuable clues about environmental exposures that cause attacks. Our tools help patients, physicians, and public health agencies systematically track asthma in real time so that they can put the latest information to work to better understand and control the disease.
So we've now completed 2 successful pilot studies. In both, Asthmapolis was effective at improving asthma management and reducing the number of days and nights with asthma symptoms. We demonstrated an ability to collect useful data to public health surveillance and then significantly improved asthma control among the participants. Overall, 75% of people who participated improved their level of control, and the number with uncontrolled asthma fell by half. In these trials, all we did was add a sensor to their rescue inhaler to remotely monitor the time and location where they used their rescue medications. It's a key indicator of asthma control. And then participants get personalized feedback about how they're doing and data-driven guidance for how it might be improved. So as health systems now start to adopt the technology, their physicians can better monitor and manage patients with asthma, learn how they're doing, identify who needs more attention, and then help those who are worsening. And since inhalers are often used at the time and the location of exposures that cause symptoms, public health agencies now, for the first time, have real-time views of where and when asthma is happening in their communities. This lets them identify places that pose a particular threat, even just target and evaluate interventions to reduce asthma morbidity, and then hopefully start to collect new clues about the causes of attacks. But more important, it allows people, ordinary citizens, right, to participate in some small but meaningful and potentially effective way in public health surveillance and in activities against asthma. So really, I have 2 goals. It's create tools that help people better manage their asthma with less effort. and make it so that a collection of people who previously didn't think to share their information about disease and really couldn't have if they'd even wanted to, might now work together and have a lasting effect as a group. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. At the beginning of the program, when I introduced Dr. Warren Muir, I mentioned that there's probably nobody anywhere that has the depth of insight and experience into this broad area as Dr. Muir. Dr. Muir, you've heard all these presentations today and fitting them into the context of your experience, we had grand rounds at the University of Louisville at the invitation of Dr. Jesse Roman yesterday. And if I'm counting right, that's about 8 administrations in your experience. Remarkable. If you would give us some comments that overarch the things that we've seen today and your great experience, we would be most honored and most grateful. Dr. Muir?
If this microphone's live, I think I'll just do it from here. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. This is the first time I've been to Louisville, and I've very much enjoyed the hospitality, and this event is truly remarkable, so I really am honored to have been invited. I'm not going to speak in my official capacity as Executive Director of the National Academy of Sciences. The Academy speaks through its independent reports that we produce. But rather, I'd like to speak in my individual capacity as somebody who goes back going back all the way to pre-original Earth Day in 1970 as a student environmental leader while I was in graduate school. And then spending 40 years in Washington in various capacities, originally at the Council on Environmental Quality during the Nixon and Ford administrations, developing the environmental laws of the 70s, and then as the head of a program at the Environmental Protection Agency implementing the new Toxic Substances Control Act, and at universities and nonprofit role, and at the Academy on environmental issues. And I only want to make a few points. One is, first of all, the air is a common. I mean, the air is something that we all share, we all breathe. The outdoor air and so forth is not something that we individually have a lot of control over. And so the air has been a particularly important environmental concern, over all the years. But I want to say the air is a lot better. The Clean Air Act was passed, and in many respects, the air is cleaner, the outdoor air is cleaner than it was before. I don't want people to be so despairing and to think that there are policy options and that what we've been doing hasn't been worthwhile. The air is enormously better as a result of the Clean Air Act. Our workplaces are safer as a result of the Occupational Safety and Health Act. The toxic chemicals being released into our environment, into the air and into the water, are reduced as a result of merely the reporting, the toxics release inventory. The chlorofluorocarbons, which are affecting the stratospheric ozone, are being regulated as a result of the Montreal protocols and as a result of domestic legislation. And while that issue is not over because of the time lags, we're going to be turning the corner on that air pollution issue, which hasn't been mentioned. The ban on smoking in airplanes has made the air on aircraft significantly safer. So I don't want you to be despairing in terms of the possibility of improvements and through public policy and through regulation. There's more to go. I mean, in the outdoor air, for example, coal-fired power plants are still a very significant contributor to air pollution, and there's a dirty set of them that are old and are particularly large contributors. And so there is more to be done, but the acts have worked. There's one issue which is not directly a health issue, that's an air pollution issue that I'll mention, and I don't know how we're going to handle that. Certainly it is getting worse and will continue to get worse, and that's carbon dioxide and global warming. The Academy's done many studies and has definitely concluded that there is global warming, there is climate change, and that humans are a significant contributor to it. And in addition, that in order to stabilize our carbon dioxide levels, the world is going, no matter when we start, the world is going to have to cut back carbon dioxide emissions from where we are now by 80%. So it's a very substantial amount of reduction that's going to be necessary to stabilize our carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide, because of the excesses in the atmosphere, will be with us for hundreds of years. And so it's got a long time cost. So it's a very real issue. I don't know how we're going to handle that. I think the whole issue of smoking is just enormously important. Smoking has a dramatic impact on public health and so forth. I just underscore everything that you've heard today. One can deal with smoking in the workplace and smoking in restaurants and smoking in aircraft, but ultimately it's personal choices, and programs like what you have are where we're going to have to end up going. I'm happy to see that overall trends are going down, at least elsewhere, in smoking, but it's a very, very important issue. And I wanted to sort of, I think, end with, I thought that your presentation was absolutely fantastic, and I think it is it's an indication of where some of the future opportunities are. I think more and more of our air pollution issues, as we tackle the outdoor air, are going to be the indoor air issues. And I would point out that an awful lot of the toxic chemicals to which we're exposed to, our exposures are greatest in our workplace and in our homes. And fine, we can use our Occupational Safety and Health Act to try and control, as we are, and improve the workplaces. But a lot of our exposure is in our homes. And as we seal up our homes to make them more energy efficient and so forth, the air levels of contaminants can end up being higher. So if people are smoking, secondary smoke in a sealed up home will be even higher levels. But there are a lot of other chemicals to which we're exposed as a result of their being constituents in products and being released into our air, in the materials in the houses, and so forth. And that's not going to lend itself to a Clean Air Act or an EPA regulation. But I do think that where we're heading is that there's just remarkable technology that's now in our pockets, and the trends are I mean, it's just amazing, the amount of computing power here. We had at the Academy a meeting where the cell phone people said, gee, it costs us 25 cents to put a GPS in one of these things, and look at what you can do with it. Now, we can put all sorts of sensors and things in these things. What would you like us to do? And so we got people together from public health community, homeland security areas, and so forth. And it's just truly remarkable what the possibilities are here in the future. And I think we're going to have more ability. We're going to have more information. We're going to have more ability to assess our own local environment. We're going to be able to get detectors and so forth. We're going to be able to better understand the practices and the products and so forth that are resulting in unhealthy conditions in our home. And I think that that in addition to the sort of the top-down of the Clean Air Act, of the Occupational Safety and Health Act, and the Toxics Release Inventory, although actually the Toxics Release Inventory in many respects is a bottoms-up approach because it's an information-driven one, that there are going to be a lot of our progress is going to come through bottoms-up approaches, and it's going to be through individual empowerment and information and sensing, and not just ones where it's sort of managed by the public health community, but it's going to be able to be ones where individuals themselves are going to be able to adjust their lifestyle and otherwise have more control over their own individual air and health and other things. So I think that I started in the environmental arena dealing with all the laws of the 70s, and there was a lot of optimism that resulted out of the first Earth Day. I'm starting to get some new optimism again with sort of foreseeing and not even being able to figure out what it'll all be, but foreseeing more bottoms-up types of opportunities. I think people will have more control over their own health and their health care and their own decisions. They'll have more understanding of their environment and be able to, they'll know more about what in their house is using power. It's just going to be much more individual empowerment coming forward over the next decade. And so we'll be able to pursue some of our social values through some of these bottoms-up means. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really want to express our appreciation to all of our panelists for an excellent series of presentations. I want to ask one question. Mr. Green, what did MAD stand for? Making a difference. In bringing this to a conclusion, I'd just like to touch back on Mr. Green and making a difference, just as he and his colleagues are taking information they have and going out, in his case to school children who need that information. Each and every one of us has the opportunity to take the information that we have here and go out and make a difference. One of the things that Dr. Muir mentioned, and there are just two parallels that those of us in the medical field and his environmental field see. There was a long period of stagnation about environmental issues. You saw that awful picture from downtown Louisville. And certainly Dr. Muir knows what it was like before the first Earth Day, before Rachel Carson's Silent Spring publication. In parallel, we've also gone through a long period of stagnation where access to quality health care has progressively deteriorated. Steps were made to form the Environmental Protection Agency and bring it forward, just as more recently, steps have been made to reform health care and bring access to all people. These two things are very important to preserve. Now, no federal agency is perfect. And I'm sure Dr. Muir and his colleagues could point out things that in that great agency could be inspected and improved. No policy is perfect. The hard-won healthcare reform that we've just begun, those of us in the medical profession can tell you it certainly can be improved. But there is no argument against a healthy, compassionate, inspired citizenship and a healthy, effective workforce. Wherever in the political spectrum you come from, conservative, liberal, libertarian, green, and Grinch, there's no argument against a healthy, effective, inspired citizenship. And so as you go out and meet with your political arenas, please take those messages. We would welcome improvement, I'm sure to the EPA, as Dr. Muir said, would welcome improvement to our health care reform, but do not tolerate statements that incorporate repeal or defund. Thank you very much. We have just a few minutes for questions, and first hand right there. Yeah.
The website, again, is helpcleartheair.com. There's a lot of smoke in the places, so we just want to help me to fan it out here, helpcleartheair.com. And you can make it out to HCTA or Help Clear the Air if you wanted to donate. We appreciate any penny. We're going to try to raise enough to do a film, and you know films cost a lot, but they also generate a lot. And then we'll also use that money to put right back in, and we're going to do at least 12. We've got 7 of them written. So any help we can get, we appreciate. Helpcleartheair.com. Or you can email me personally, too. I work at Sprint Corporate. When I'm not doing this, I work at Sprint, so I'm doing more than I need to be doing, but I get a little sleep. My wife will tell you. She can attest to that. But andre.green@sprint.com is my email. It's my name, ANDRE.green, like the color, with an E at the end of it, at sprint.com. If you need a phone, I can help you, too.
Christy. By the way, before you speak, Christy, thank you so much for putting together this wonderful festival of faith that brings together not only all of the spiritual things, but these very practical day-to-day consequences of our involvement with our fellow humans. That what you and Owsley have done is truly remarkable, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
I want to thank Dr. Tobin for taking the leadership in this remarkable coming together. I have to say, I think one of the reasons that I was, and Owsley as well, so inspired about sacred air was the fact that our reality here in our region, and in Louisville in particular, we learned is of our air is so terrible. So of course, that affords an opportunity. As I am angry about the air, I'm mad. So together I feel we can all create the action that's needed. And I'm really proud to say that because of Dr. Tobin's leadership and the leadership of the many others who have taken, who have become engaged in this development of the Sacred Air Festival of Faith, the mayor is now taking a very strong interest in this. He'll be very interested in meeting you, Andre, which I will make happen, I hope even today. But also he has announced that there will be a new task force of which Dr. Smith will be engaged in developing to, among other things, plant more trees to help with our air realities. And I'm sure that will also result in many other projects that we are yet to hear about. My husband did have COPD, and so this is particularly important. And I'm sure there are, I am very disappointed that at my normal dinner parties and cocktail parties, when I would be invited to sort of say, and Christy, what are you up to? And I'd say, well, I'm very thrilled about the development of our Festival of Faith, Sacred Air. Because you know our air quality is so poor, and the answer 9 out of 10 times was, oh, you know, that's the Ohio Valley, you know, period. So I want to also ask you for your help. For 16 years, we have had this festival face. We've had many loyal supporters of various religious institutions, but the reality is, in this room, I believe there is only one full-time professional religious, and maybe I'm wrong, help me if I'm wrong. There's Father Joe Mitchell. If you'll stand up, Father Joe Mitchell, please. Thank you for being here. Am I missing, we have our sisters here, but am I missing any others who are not exhibitors, who are in the audience who are full-time religious? I think that is an indicator of the opportunity and the problem. We have Sunday after Sunday, Fridays after Fridays, we have pulpits, and we have people who are very great thinkers and with great hearts and souls who are standing behind pulpits like this, and they're not here today. They're not learning about these facts, and therefore there's no way that they're going to be speaking about them with power and emotion. So we need your help, because when in fact we are able to mobilize our religious institutions, we will do the right things to affect the positive change that's needed. So thank you.